Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Kande Lo Je Guen Je Do Ka Raga Ai Sho Sa Bon De Ai Chon Ze An Ze Che Ye Ya Bo Guen Je Lo San Zha Se Da Je Ba Ne De Ai Che So So De Ai Ye Na Ga Se De Ai Be De De Che Ze La Ma Ge Be Zong Ga Je Pa Lo De Be So Na Xin Jo Do Dian Ba Je Je Ke Ya Zhu Zo Zo Xie Jie Chen Gu Jia Wei Lo Zhi Ke Zang Na Be Yan Yo Le Xie Song Cha Be Be Ye La Me Ze Be Ko Ton De Zhen Be Ton De La Zhan Ze Ye Wo Zhe Ye Na Zo Me Do Dang Che Xian Do Be Na Ze Zhe Cha Wo Shan Ye Zhe Che De Ya Zo De Se Na Xian Jo Tie La Che Ba Be Kan Xie Do Me Tu Ne Sa Ba Ye Liu Ma Ye Song Mi Ge Ji Ji Ba Ke Ba Dong Ba Son Ye Me De Ye Ne Ye Ba Ta Be Zo Zo Sha Ni Me De De Man De Ro La Zhe Che Ye Ban Be Dan Jo De Gong Bo Ye Ye La Jian Ze Ba La Ta Zha San Ba Ta Be Let me remind every one of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it bodhicitta motivation, or the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this Lamrim discourse Discourse on the Stages of the Path Leading to Enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa. Allow me to read about a page or two from this Lamrim Chemo, volume number 2 in the English translation of Lamrim Chemo, page 215, to give you the blessing of lineage oral transmission, followed by explication.
Geshe de she de ve jojo se da ra shi ve su men jo ba me ba yo we she ro yo de lo bo de bi tu she la pe ji ro je ya sha ba lo ba de sha wa jo ba yo so ba ba ma de sha jo yo so ba ba da she ji de nge mi su ning je la nyang e ko ro ji be le lo me nga da ga wa so de yang de yang Gawacho de Yanda, Yingme, Tomondo, Mie, Dajin Sebo, de Deda. Teta Nimbula, Sheta Shembuka, Bienam, but the Shezu, Shea, Nodele, Chini, Doa, Minzela. Kunzo Tajiso, the Shea, Sumatara, Samaranze, Migdi, Samarazi, Migdi. Che nama du za yo ma ro ba ba nge ba che ba ni be che ni che ni ne do ra me go ba ta che na ge ge jen le de bu so zeng jong la wa nge jo la nge ba te bo a ni be de ba che ba ni be kun zo da ya nga me ge je ju zo to ba ba che la ba che de ge wa ta nge che ra che la wa me ge shi tun ba da Yawa diyele shi diyele na diyele na dane ga ba la choga la lar che du nge la nge ba ma la pin tun ke ba ma shi be so shi so ba da te ba khong ge dang do ga ni ga nang ge nang ga men ja wa ma de ba da te na kha sa chi ge Nyam se va le ba ni so ma ra je je ko ba so lo te me ba mo ba nge wa ke ba la me nge wa she ra ba je be se o no te ta she ra me wa ge wa she ra ba je la me nge wa ta ye ja ma de yin je na ye sha da ng song ro pin zu na pin zu na ga ma de ye ja ma go ba me nge wa she ra ji Sheba dini shera jenga wala na meba imbe shera jenga wala na meba ino. Dono yonde taje shera le shawani fula chambi ma fula chambi manja shira wale. Tide punzo punzo jung tide punzo mo so jung chesarji. Deshi doju doje pe jo zu mi cho ju xiao ta je dang yong zhe so xi ma rui ta je jiang ti zhe xie re ju la den xing zhong. Ji de dang de ju zi de zhe dang zi la ming zhe wa xin ye wa dang yong so ju bu ji zhe lo da nga ba nga so. Nam ku che je be che wa ta de da wa nam zhe wa na ma nam zhe re go da wa dang ji de pen be nam ba wa ti da ti Geshe tu jen nam ba ra tu she wa wa ti da ta je she ra tu li xiong she so. She ra me we nye me la she ra me na wa ji so na ma me da wa zhe wa je me da wa zhe wa je wa ne we di wa li. Mulumeva, Chawatadena, Lamayan, Major Tonjaba, Kalanjure, Sheramena, Mepa, Singandi. Maybe me Shantibaga near my shares over the Chirizo and Namataba Major Yanda, Shitawa Young, Minete, Sherabaman and Jibatonil. Jibata, Ni number time, Jurisendo, Tamaji, Bejong. Lama Nurbitonji joy, she the Vashera Mabamazina. Churda the Deba, Demin, Jury Physician, maybe Surda, she is the Vashive George Venimo. Yoji, she the Vashera law, be George, Semino, Namasu, and the Delaney, Linito, la Mikitsu, Changi, Yondi, maybe, Yondi, maybe, Yela. Yondi, maybe, Yela, whatever she said. Keba nama phudu, keba lava phudu, nga keba nala phudu, nga tere cha singa. Saba shemeba, debe kyonje, yonsumare yinum chambo shera me shera me mendo. Shi shera wa tsu la tsu shi shera tsu la tsu me la chang na de dao yonsa ta mi ji sheso. Jela 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 cha jela chaba ni yonde me be jewa la chaba ji. Da di me da shia de tere sha. Kiza da de pajin khasa jeba shilo ka de ni samde da shera lobji che sheba de la shera paji shea de ni shera paji ki tere da kanje ngakba do yonde sna shera paji yonde sna da shera lang lin je shera yonde the ngakba tere sa.
Geshe read from the bottom of page 214 to page 217 to give us the blessing of lineage oral transmission. And so those who are using e-copy of the textbook, it's under the caption, How to Begin the Generation of Wisdom. That was on page 212. So in this particular section, we have been dealing with perfections of meditative stabilization and wisdom, sort of in an integrated, combined form. And it seems like you already talked about meditative stabilizations, and now we are in the perfection of wisdom part. And so the things that Geshe read, it really highlights the significance of the perfection of wisdom or Gyan Paramita. In other words, the praises, for the wisdom of for the perfection of wisdom.
Something there show them by Jonsa Niba, Shimbu Bajo, Languri Petzilla Dembani, Kiumara, Yella Chetat of J sauce, that did there, Conjedi, that did it. Long Boyug, I think, soon, Timar Karsa. Long Boyug, something Karsa, Danam Yonda, Chandias. Oh, Sijin. Pajin Duba, Pajin Divara, what I did my long Shamaga Pajin Divare. Or tell this song as a conje. Tinde someday the Gashon of Benera, she named the toy in the sewer. She named the toy in a dog on to Sugratu Richard Raval, Chagati, she don't know things in the all the shine. Could you give a job about the Jarangsa de Wara? So that don't saw they said this. Jonsa Yebashu Bajo, Lam good regrets to let them by yes. That Lam could do it. You mother, Yella Shetado, Jesu, said the shadow make the them at the king of Lana de Mesona. Anything in the Kazayana tea pet of Molestic was Sukta rakpa ma chakpa de ka to war na denge de dewal chakpa de rangsa de sho war shete ya tarba thoya ki ya law le to ma dis this war da
so we are on page 214, more towards the end. There are a series of citations from the compendium of the perfections, or I might translate it as the condensed perfection of wisdom by Indian master Lobem Pao Acharya Vira, and I think it's also known as Ashwagos, my footnote 1. So Geshe explanation pertains to the last citation towards the end of page 214. And so what's stated there is this, that even if we have what we call meditative stabilization, or let's say calm abiding or shamatha, right? And so when we have a calm abiding or shamatha, what we have achieved is that it is as if we have detached ourselves from the coarse material things. In other words, maybe we might have overcome our attachment to coarse material things, objects of pleasure, sensual pleasures, and so forth. But still, we have attachment to the bliss of calm abiding, right, or the ecstasy of the calm abiding. That means we still have attachment. We are not free of attachment. We are kind of free of attachment from one side, which means from the sensual pleasures of kinds dependent upon material things and all these coarse objects. But we're still deeply attached to this internal blissful experience that arises out of shamatha. Okay? So the point that's being made here is as long as we don't have the perfection of wisdom, we are lacking wisdom, we will still be attached here in some form to the inner experiences, and without the wisdom, we will never be able to achieve nirvana or liberation from the suffering.
Doyen John de Mendoa, Sherab Lumad Dembe, Tuin, Tishin, the Simjin, Nidionatoin, Shaba Shukta, Deja Jones Mendoa, the Simjin Dungel Music, Ninja Shukta, like Yuran or Yerja, Yangi, Nani, Gioli Mitri, Lilo Mevata, Gawatse Mevata, Danyang, Simian, Bigbala, Yayo Meva. Tanim Chimbu, Guda Danyang, Doyaton, Gigi, Yawa, Casameo, and Shera Geshe, Teta, Top Zunso, Jubi, Shera Jungovi Sheros, Tereta, Penal, Sanji song, big Dazina, Giwapi, Duze, Samba Timba, Momosungo, any cut, Da Yabas, Da Mesa, Demba Duvains, Dira Mesa, that day, social, Chansamla social, now I ever know. Nindula Yomarwa, or did that doesn't go among the Ganga any share of the Mandana, anything Mingo drop to Maris or Kap, Shera Yuna, and of course, some way Gyeltsen to go at the Geshe, and then Sunya did the Dika to go at the moving this you Mari, Kazak can do somebody thing, then everybody the song you're listening. Because you say here, she told you any share of Geshe go over this. That the Gana eat his door. Chita Nindela that Doyosity begin Doja to be Shibuki took Nashi Pang Song Yorba. You're at Tishina, and Chasum to the young Shazam Power to the young College Yawa to the Shen, and the bear to move Momboshe, and the bear said the same Mombosh in Tinder and Dozon Shiag, young cock of yours. With their shadow Gahaku or this that. So 2 years. So that it is big. Doyong Longchana, any picking Doyong get social minute, big dink of Sana, and Doyong Longcha show. But this is that. And you do so show me as a Kaduna now, your Marwa, the Isaway. 2 years last, taking the CB was there. When the CB you do want the Chamba Shuta get young star open 소은자와 이도가 되를 배 참반의 힘을 쑥자고 찍어올디现在得了被下边对象这么咱这个嘛的习惯的，但我这那就想法的那对象你这种的都习惯了，我的咱这个嘛的是，第二你现在习惯的是吧？但是甚至东边个那那边比如说我媳妇有些媳妇教育的咱了，那什么么呢？我都懂呢，这个留了现在是什么多么的，这现在不给两个都差着嘛的是个，可是왜 너가 어떤 지식이 되려야 이는 좀 더다 또 효과를 주고 그래서 어디 해라고 시고로 다 가와세메던 대양 세미용 세미용이 여여메 왔다 그래서 딱 건설변 가와세야 되단다 데려와 제당 디 시대전 꽃배 기부 희부신도잖아 애는 그대로 생용이 아닌 가지고 그래 됐어 와도와 제도 전주서에 가와세메 받아 가지고 나 ene sempre 행동 삼발링아 요마리스 다 따님 윤도 된리데 신나 따님 시대 따르게 걸사 다도 데로 걸사 데다디 따님데 데리 예리샤던 데 따님 이는 소와 따님 예리샤던 데 따님 세야죠 이는 대화데 되어야 돼 따님 솜스 좋아 디 예리샤던 따님 들어와 어디 따님 된대야 이는 따님 레스 다 지당 가서 따님 시대 지당 가리고 그래서는 거의 그 가도 가야 매워 바스라 쇼야서 저거로 어디서 가서 심지에 가가 예를 사다 뭐 따님 믿으시고 어디 신은 심지에 동산에 예완도 맞지 어디마다 미시대 듣다 또中수 주베 세력이 고비세로서 어때도 믿으시고 간가티 도시는 거 약보 좋다야 돼 가네 용거에서는 애니 혈압이 퇴시고 그랬어 어디입니다.
So Geshe-la's explanation pertains to what you find in the last paragraph on page 214, bottom over to page 215. So what Geshe-la has explained is that we are really dealing with the benefits and the significance of cultivating the perfection of wisdom, without which we will not be able to advance on our spiritual path to liberation or nirvana. And Shakyamuni Buddha, taking into account the predispositions of innumerable beings, their mental capacities and abilities, taught all kinds of things. So if we don't have the wisdom, we may not be able to sort out as if there are, contradictions within what Buddha has said in his discourses. For example, sometimes it seems like Buddha says, well, there is kind of a self or something truly existent. Other times he said, well, there aren't anything that's truly existent, selflessness. So, saying that there is self and there is no self, that seems very contradictory, like at the face value, right? So without wisdom, we will not be able to understand what was Buddha's real intention behind this, and for what reason did he say, which seems like seemingly contradictory statements here and there, right? And under what circumstances he made those things. So therefore, cultivating wisdom is very pertinent and essential for us to be able to figure out Buddha's reasons and intentions behind such statements. For example, in the Sharavaka Yan, or the hearer's vehicle, Buddha has been very strict on dealing with or preventing or counteracting attachment to anything. Right? There's so much emphasis that attachment is like a poison. You cannot let attachment arise at all, because he gets so tough and so strong, and he's like so adamant about that, right? In the Sharavakayan, because attachment is a poison. You just can't have it. You can't deal with it. It just goes on. But then in the Bodhisattva discourses, then he seems to be a little bit more kind of a liberal perspective, right? For Bodhisattvas, there are certain things which for others might be considered as negativities. But he kind of give a permission or allows the Buddha, okay, in your case, because of your bodhicitta, you can do some of those things. For example, for bodhisattvas, who's really And bodhicitta means that they do everything for the benefit of greater good and for the universe. So sometimes bodhisattvas manifest in the form of like kings and the ministers and all. So then you said, you know what? Okay, you can have family, you can get married, you can have wives, you can have children. If all of those things help you to promote the well-being of others better, it's okay. So that kind of a teaching in the Bodhisattva discourses and the strict rules and regulations, the Charvakayana, said by the same Buddha, we look at that looks like contradictory, right? So we really need wisdom to be able to understand for him, he said whatever he said. Under what circumstances he said whatever he said, and what was the real intention behind whatever he said. See that? I know I'm confusing you here, but so that's why wisdom is very important for us to have. And also, when we think in terms of the four immeasurables, right? Immeasurable love. For us, if we're really not careful, when we see someone who is very kind of attractive and appealing to our heart, we may love them, but then our love might get mixed with attachment. So it get contaminated. Love and attachment, there, there. And we don't know. We think we have love, but there's attachment there, okay? Which is our issue. But for bodhisattvas, their love, immeasurable love, as they love and wish others to be happy, those who appear dear near to them, which basically means all, my second footnote, right? They don't get attached to them. So bodhisattvas don't have the same problem as we ordinary people do. Our love gets mixed up with attachment, and so that's why, because with bodhisattvas have the wisdom, perfection of wisdom. So the wisdom helps them to, how should I say, discern between what is love and what is attachment and what should not be mixed here, right? That's bodhisattva's thing. And also when we think in terms of our compassion, right? And when we have compassion, sometimes maybe compassion disheartens us. Like we think like, oh my gosh, there's so much misery, What can I do? I'm just insignificant, There's nothing. It just kinds of maybe, how should I say, makes us feel helpless. But in the case of bodhisattvas, because of the perfection of wisdom, the compassion gives them a lot of courage, that the more suffering and misery they see, the more courage they seem to develop and determination, like, okay, I must muster up all my courage and everything to be able to help them, be free of suffering. So therefore, the wisdom is very important. It plays that role. And then in the case of immeasurable sense of joy, okay? And so again, when we feel joyful or maybe excitement, we get distracted, isn't it? Life becomes too happy, That happiness can distract us, like, okay, wow. And, why? Because we are lacking that wisdom. When the bodhisattvas have this immeasurable joy, that doesn't distract them in a way from working for sentient beings. They are continuously dedicated for the well-being of sentient beings. They're not like, wow, my life is so happy, so what's the wrong with here, right? No, they just, very, how should I say, the joy does not distract them, just like our joyfulness and happiness might distract us, And so that's because of the wisdom that they cultivate. And the last thing is immeasurable sense of equanimity, or we call tangyom, balanced kind of a state of mind. Well, equanimity can be explained in three different ways, but the one that right now we're talking about is sense of equanimity means unbiased, right? You're not attached to those dear near ones. You don't hate and dislike those who don't like you. You just have a sense of equanimity in that sense, And again here, maybe sometimes when we feel it, it may come a more like indifferent attitude, right? Equanimity seems like, I don't care what happens to you. I don't care what happens to you. I just don't care. Looks like I have equanimity. Hey. But that's not what equanimity is. The bodhisattvas, again, the sense of equanimity is not an indifferent sense of attitude. Because of the wisdom of the perfection of wisdom, they never give up. Working for and benefiting sentient beings. See. So in this passage, what we find is the need to cultivate the perfection of wisdom and why it is important in so many ways, and how bodhisattvas' way of life and experiences are very different from those of us who are very ordinary.
대다양 엉구이는 다들에도 걸사 디 파진데 발에 엉구이는 라지 자도베 예시 신지 정주 선바다 랑시 쓰면 조함해 봐 양스 로 엉구이는 라지라서 당 다시 롱주를 베게 건제 걸사 라지 자도베시 샤서 푸순소바 ene yesi be ta lungjo ge pusun so wa de yena ene tel chakwa ma je me ja chimi je tel ma ja shi ne ene tel ya be ka tong di de ene da ja to ma ta ene ta ba yesi ro wa yesi na ene yesi shan pe ro wa ho di so ro wa ho di yesi sha ta ya de ka re se na ene di sherab di ta ji shong ri ro sherab lumbu de be tu se 교화매와야 셔를름보 뎀베 투 셔를름보 뎀베 투스 어디래 다 거기 예실 배 부순서와 요경 이제 들야 차바매와 르땅타야 돼 셔럽다 그래 담이 돈다데 행이 로기 로차 디와 데이터거를 세거라 여지 슈거와 셔를 벤지 로지 샴발은 데자 저 용수 방바탕 스데 당기 저와 셔를 벤바 빅빅 샴바 12년나 이 ganzu chamada ine 저자니 데르르시아티 벤나 데르저어 왔다 롱에 들려서 롱에 더 두자로 제도 때에서 야가로 쉬는 표시는 더 야가들 때이랑 삼벌 야가 용도 왔다 용도를 돼 용거고 미세 착발시 공주지 가리네 민도 코로 이게 용도야 줘라 어디 용도 말이라 샤문데자로 만제 빠바당 셰이 등에 메세 닝젤라 세 냥에 콩길로 맹아땅 세데데 저와 셰다 다기데다 세메탄지 비게다 먼저 메 페바드지는 등에 셰보 선다 칸다 세베도 우두신디야르지 바드 탑기세야 어 제도 좀 말해 어디 메어지 등에 그 가제 심제 등에 가제 상나 텔라박베게 이는 닝제 휴셔야다 탑기 사와 동아 줘라 어디 셰라 시거라 냥에 거지벨로 미카라 냥에 거지릴로 민가탕 가와서인데 안나 에네 가서 다긴 미 가서 가와서 당대양 대 가서 가초 당대양다 ing매 당스러와 에네 가와서다 대 답게 가서 땡인지다 근데 힐라 숭리다 저도 땡인지 탑서드잖아 또 가르치는 땡인지 가와 싶지 용거 르스미 레롱 르 Luel dunge yom kar nasa de yom ko mar kira en sem gi dewa shin en pezi dewa bashi na ro de so shagro wa shagre di shena dewa de la ha stipi siba shin en sem ti so yon ru mar ko so do chendo rubya kare na di ko tak da da pu di so ma de dewa ti go kor ni en chendo nyamya de yo maris ji she yonde de da en karsa 다니 쳔보다 연대 대당 님불람 싫어시부가 넘버 제스 어찌무라다 디레 연대 연타에 가르스데 미디쇼 강가데 셔럽디 피게 세는 까사로 왔어 셔럽디 연대에 스타스 지즈거라
So we are on top of page 215. We have citations from Compendium of the Perfections. So basically, the meaning has already been explicated, and these citations substantiate what has already been explained. So anyway, as Geshe gave brief explanation on these citations, in the case of bodhisattvas, even if let's say they own a lot of wealth and resources, they do not get attached to their wealth and resources and power and prestige and positions, and so they still are able to, dedicate and for the well-being of sentient beings. They can let go attachment to all the prestige, power, even if they do have. This is because of the perfection of wisdom. Or in the case of our teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, he was born in a royal family. So he was born with really gold spoon in his mouth, really. But then, at a certain stage in his life, he decided to renounce the royal life and, go into solitude, right? And he was able to let go, have that kind of renunciation, basically because of the wisdom. Because wisdom helped him to be able to let go all that, royalties, let's put it. So therefore, the wisdom is very essential for us to cultivate. And so in the case of our love, again, as Geshe explained, that, even those who need our help and love, we somehow seems to discriminate amongst them. Let's say if we see two beggars, right? One really look miserable and wretched and ugly and destitute too much. The other is kind of poor, but looks kind of handsome or beautiful, right? Depending upon the gender, let's say, right? But somehow we tend towards helping the one who looks handsome and beautiful, right? And then the one who really needs it. Why is that? That means our compassion, attachment is really somewhere mixed with attachment and some other things, because we started to discriminate based upon the appearances, and but whereas bodhisattvas don't have that issue or the problem, because of their wisdom. And in the case of our compassion and dealing with misery, as we said, if our suffering gets too big and too intense, we get overwhelmed and we feel so helpless, right? Instead of finding solutions to our problems or finding a way out of the suffering, address it, we just kind of oh my gosh, what can I do really? Poor miserable me here. And it's just we let the suffering kind of overtake us and we feel disheartened and we just, we break down into pieces. But bodhisattvas don't. The more suffering they see that sentient beings experience, the more intense the suffering is, the more compassion they experience. So their compassion is enhanced by the extent and the intensity of the suffering. And then they really are able to explore many different ways to address the issues and and find ways to resolve the problems. This is because of their wisdom. And so in our case, let's say if we succeed in cultivating a calm abiding, shamatha, then once we have it, we can really absorb ourselves completely within ourselves in the blissful experience, right? The pliancies of body and mind. The body is so pliant, the mind is so pliant, the body is so healthy, the mind is so happy. And, looks like this is it. What else do you need? We just get locked in and we get attached to it. We're like, okay, life is good, And so we get attached and then we don't really benefit anybody in a sense, right? We just kind of distracted by the blissful experience of the meditative stabilization. But bodhisattvas don't have that problem because they integrate the calm abiding with the wisdom, and the wisdom helps them to discern right, wrong, what needs to be done, and they're always in the service of other sentient beings. Thanks.
ngādu shēnyā ngādu lē sī chūnyīn dāwā mēnzē lā kunzō tāngyā jēsū tūñ shē sūṅbā tārā tsēmā dzēmbī mīkbā mīkdē tāñjī dūyé tsāyā chūpa mēbā ngāwā shēmā jībī chūnyīn dōrā mē gō bātā shīnāngī gyūjēn lēn jībī sōsū rōngā lā ngābā yīng tāqbā nē 니베 군조비 당야 민게 지수 템바 현의 현주 요야 시럽전라 민게시 투바당 스티르메다 다르가사 데다 돈이도 버데 라벤다 페치와지 간도단다 셈즈바 메지 강가 니 균데텐데 샤도 강가 덴조 강의 샤용으자 춘인 도르고 다 덴요신 춘인 도르고로 어디 춘인도 덴바데바데 무고세 데미 녜바지베 강을 any unit in the distribution at the demo model any so the table pig or Yunya day or Tinamja there any head of the young goddess or the young goddess. So I share of the Minga, just Chumbata, young teen go daily. No, than the Kagwala, Choga la, Jigni, Lala, Nieva Malala. Pinzing going a message so here soon, but that's what that is. No, no, than the Gabala, Chogala, Jigdu, Lala, Eva Malala, Pinzing going a message so Chedda, Sunsi than any big Kajil cars. You didn't know you were sort of Sunsi in your among your race. You're the that shut up, make the 엔 거가도 그 뒤에 삼바당 저 그런 게 더블 때니 엔 카드 수구여서 엔티 경험에 소토그레스 또 들어왔다 년도 속주 나와서 매வது 거 정주스 매도 거 소제는 매겨리로 그러면서 소제네 그 겨울기가 까버라고 말아 그 로이 니바제 버와 다 정주스 봐도 양 로이 니 정주스 비게 군난 지시는데 소제나라 제단 소제 매겨리 정주스 그거 이제 되는 속주 가게를 양 겨울 봤다 그러면 대부분이 주쟁 그 문화등도 써야 계시면 어디서 심지어 세가 될 중고로 어때도 간가 꿈기다 이 셔럽 되게 이 가실 디바 이게 가실 디바 뭐 개발상이 저자티 셔럽레스 어디 이제
So we are in the middle of page 215. We have citation from praise in honor of one worthy of honor and so forth. And so what is stated in that section, as Geshe explained, is this, that for us ordinary beings or people, we are able, it's like we accept the law of causality, cause and effect, karmic actions and their consequences based upon this kind of assumption or the belief that they are truly existent, isn't it? We accept the law of causality, the law of karmic actions and consequences based upon the assumption that there is such thing as truly existent. Okay? So interdependent origination works for us, provided that things are truly existent. Right? That's our belief and that's our assumption. Okay? So we are not able to accept that things are not truly existent, yet things can function, right, conventionally in terms of cause and effect relationship. We have that difficulty, isn't it? In the case of bodhisattvas, of course, on the assumption that they have realized the understanding of emptiness, nothing exists truly or intrinsically, but yet things function conventionally, and there could be cause and effect relationship among things. Yeah. So bodhisattvas' acceptance and belief in the law of causality and our belief in the assumption of the law of causality are based on different belief systems, isn't it? And we are not able to handle the things bodhisattvas is telling us. So, and why is this big difference? Why can't bodhisattvas believe that nothing exists truly, but things can still function conventionally? And why we couldn't accept that, and we just have to think that things have to exist truly, okay, then it makes sense. Otherwise, why's that? It's because of they have the wisdom and we don't have that wisdom. And as we have talked about this quite a bit today, that when we look at the kind of a surface level of Buddha's discourses, there seems to be a lot of contradictions, Buddha seems to be saying, it's okay for you to do that. Then he tells like, you can't do that forever, never. And, looks like there's a lot of, contradictions on the surface of things. So we need wisdom to be able to sort out, why Buddha said different things to different people at different times, under different circumstances, and with different purpose and reason, we need the wisdom to be able to sort out all of that. As Geshe again give the example, in the Sharvaka discourse, dealing with hearers, Buddha has never, ever allowed any of them to kill anybody. Killing is forever, absolutely, I usually don't use the word absolute in my translation, absolutely prohibited. Okay? Why? Because at that mental capacity and that context, Buddha knows if you kill, it's always going to be super duper negativity. It's never going to be anything good. So therefore, you better never do it. I mean it. It'll seriousness. Then you go to the Bodhisattva's discourses, right? Bodhisattvas say, for the sake of greater good, you may, indulge in killing if you really see that's the greater purpose, right? And so now Bodhisattvas are allowed to kill, whereas Sharvakas are never allowed to kill. This seems like two contradictory things said by the same teacher, Buddha, right? And why is that? Because Bodhisattvas I mean, when we say bodhisattvas, my third footnote means they really have bodhicitta, not faking or one, pretending to be one. That's not a real bodhisattva. The real bodhisattvas, now I'm even don't know what else to call them. The real, genuine bodhisattvas have bodhicitta, and whatever they do and decide, they're never going to do anything, that is going to be harmful to the greater good of the sentient being. So that's why we have the life story from Buddha, right? When he was a captain of the sea, he sailed with 500 merchants, and then they met the evil person with a spear in his hand, and he wanted to kill everybody and snatch a jewel. And then Buddha decided, well, to save the lives of the 500 merchants and to save this evil person going into the hell, I'll just kill him, And so out of compassion, he did that. And it said that because of that action, which on the surface is killing, he was able to increase his accumulation of merit by many, many folds. See that? So what is considered as very negative and evil for some may not necessarily be evil and that negative for the others. Okay, so all of this kind of the differences we find, we could only be able to make the distinction and appreciate the distinction only if we have cultivated the perfection of wisdom. Right.
특별 공유 시에서만 특별 공유는 동안에 나가 저 먼저 몽디 예바 당스 대놈 가사 지기 냠슬렘바니 손을 람짐지 공부처라 로이 투메비 몽발링게 케발밍고 셰르지 셔바 인노 스데즈워다 나가 메라 디르다베나 가자 다 도알로 르보시나 애니 게노도 자이나 비게 진다 두로녀한테 그러지 응주 거리는 응들 카도 소lên 소문도 와. 비 셰다세티 제디 진다들 제 엔디베야디 두로녀시 수때도 소소 두요도 때하면 되지 무슨 그 냐들 lan쇼부도 와. 어디서 지르와 다 정신스바도 양 가제 풍게 주나 양 내줘 그 피해를 받게하라 와. 어디 제대 땅가면 정말现동안이现특별 고려 당시도 다 단다티게 해야지. 다 동안이 있으면 동안이 나리야. 나가 메라 뭐 보여라 와. 어디서 변다 내가 샤르 비슈나. 다 배탈운티를 레스롱이 시베 체 통벌리데자 아니 샤가테니. 대가랑을 베게 가르사 아니 디가 롬토분 미 가르사 체델링은 시와라 인심이 차야 된 거야 서로 어디에 계절 요 말에 어디 강사티 그거 이게 톤도 소도 유일하게 네바드 랩디요나 있는 디고로 와 어디서 때다 다 네바메시 애니 가르사 따성사 하심사 유도 다 사루로 와 어디 네바 이노 어디에 농아 제발 정말 이해받다 된남 강사제기 냠슬렘바니 숨바 사다 들어간 강사제 뒤에 강사제 근데 고메르세야 요마르 코레레 고바레레 요자 소소 고디고와 이게 나지우야미 세드로와 어디 뒤에 강가 인 lum버도 살때 겨와도 스토그레디 셰르젠데 뒤에 강가 시소거리
So Geshe-la's explanation pertains to what you find at the bottom of page 215 and over to page 216. So continue with our theme, where on the surface it seems like Buddha's teaching, contain a lot of contradictions, inconsistencies. But if we have the right wisdom, we will be able to sort out what is and what is not, and so it wouldn't be a problematic and in that sense. And as it is stated there, and we look across the discourses Buddha gave, which we can categorize as, say, Theravadin discourses or the Mahayana discourses, again, we find at the surface level seem like contradictory things, isn't it? For example, in the monastic Vinaya tradition, which is my fourth footnote? I'm losing track of my number here. It's really according to the Theravada tradition, very, very strict rules. So if you really follow the monastic code of ethics very strictly, right, there is no any excuse or here, right? It's just strict. That's the rule is. So it means monks are not allowed to, really hold the money in their hand. should benefactors give you money, actually the rules of the game according to the strict Vinaya, you cannot give money straight into the hand of the monk. You cannot have a direct exchange here, So usually there would be some kind of a third person, caretaker. You give the money to the caretaker. The monks need to buy robes. This caretaker will take the money, buy the robes, and give the robes to the monks. That's okay. So it has to be mediated. You cannot okay, buy the robes. Here's my money for you. No, you just can't do that. Whereas Buddha did not make any prohibition about giving money or donation to the bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas should not touch the money. That's evil, right? He didn't say. Bodhisattvas can receive any amount of donations because they know they only use it for the greater good of others. They're not going to use for themselves. So bodhisattvas are allowed to touch the money, get the donations or offerings directly. Offerings means cash offering. Let's call it. The monks are not allowed to have a cash offerings directly, touch it. That's the rule, strict, So why this kind of difference exists, right? It's the level of their growth and practice and their mental capacity and ability. That's the only difference, okay? And then, of course, we look across the sutras and tantras. Wow, we find even more fascinating, looks like contradictory things, right? In the sutra, but hardly allowed, of course, especially for practitioners, to indulge in any kind of sexual intimacy. Okay, but that's not allowed. Whereas in the tantra, right, provided that it's all on the assumption that you have practiced sincerely and you reach certain higher level, where it is like necessary for you to cultivate a concert, right, to be able to expand to the next level. Then it's okay, Tantra said, right? Provided that you're not faking it out, or you're just pretending to be one, or you're just kind of trying to have some kind of experimentation or something here. You are on that level. You are realized at that level. You just, need that kind of a partner in the sense to be able to advance. Then in the Tantra, it is allowed, isn't it? Because when we think about the Tantra works with your, the chakras, or the nadis, the flow of the energy, the drops, and the energy itself, right? So Chandra deals with, use of that whole body, chakras, and energy flow, and all of that. So at certain level, when it is a necessity requirement, Buddha said it's okay, isn't it? So that seems to be contradictory when we look at the Sutrayana teachings, So we are able to, make sense of all those things and the differences and distinctions only if we have, the right kind of wisdom. So the bottom line is this. Everything Buddha has taught, it is related to one's mental ability and one's stages of spiritual growth and development. At various points, he might prohibit many things. As you go beyond those stages and your abilities have developed further, you might get certain, allowances, so to speak, right? Those freedom, right, in a sense, So everything Buddha taught, that's what we say, it's meant for one single practitioner to advance on the path. At the beginning, a lot of restrictions because your ability is not, right there. So a lot of no, don't, all of that. But as you really sincerely play, you grow in your spiritual realization, then there may be some relaxation. As you go higher up and higher up, right, then there will be more relaxation, seems like, So it's all meant for one's own personal development stages and where you are and what you are able to do, your ability, your motivation, your realization, and all of those things.
Today, Sherab Mevalan gave the Sherab gentleman gave a tie, the Yin La Sunra Pinjun La Nanga Monk, government Sherab, then Sherab Virgin Navalana Meva, Yinos, and donation yon day time Sherab Lishoni, pull a chambe Mandra Sherale, Tindepun Sojung, sheets of Chitsaji, the Yutoju Doji Pushon, Sumi Shodu, Shawa Tamje, Yonze Sojima, Tamje Jan, Tinde Sherab. Gyeltsen, Jung, Gyeltsen, Gyeltsen, Terjotang, Zula Mendechi Yabatang, Yonzu Joji lot of Nala, so Namgu Chi Chavatadi, the Namjang 남장 남아 남들 고타당 지든 뱀비 남바테다티 게시 투신 게시 투신 넘버 동시에봐 대다단지 셰라리 숑 셰라리 셰랍 툴리 숑스 다디브라 건제 셰라 메발은 개와시데 셰라 예발은 개와 메바 딘데 추에다 장 민자 몽부지 요르스 요르와 어데 난가 셰와 요르디 셰다 디에나다 셰랍기 나바르스는데 페요 셰슈르버세나 엔 디니디 개와 메바 송라기 디니 개와 메바다 카이 데바트세야 카이 데바모트세야 도시에니와티 디 송라 통데레 엔 비게 데바 메게 티데 렌데 조히 데니 개와 메바 조히야디 셰랍 셰브레스 셰다다 셰랍 파진 지당 비게 남자한테 마음이야지 지나다 셰랍 파진 나바 셰슈르 디니시고다 좋아 데메나 자지간 같이 상지하다 타바토야데 모도도 가가라고 와 데메메나 데브라서 지야요 말와 시다 티다 나바 셰슈르 디니시고
So Gisela, the explanation pertains to what you find on top of page 216. Now before that, I think example Geshe gave from the previous one where I forgot to translate. So in other words, it depends upon one's ability, motivation, realization, spiritual growth and development, what stage you are on. Okay? So we cannot pretend to be like anybody else and kind of copycat everyone, because that's not going to work. Tibetans have a saying that a fox should learn not to jump after the tiger, because tiger can jump that far, the fox is going to break your backbone, because you're not going to be able to jump at that extent. So, so there's a lesson to be learned from that kind of example. So now the next explanation Geshe given is we have been really dealing with the benefits of cultivating perfection of wisdom, which is really a must in many ways, as you can see. And so that wisdom has been praised in multiple ways, many ways, how this is important. But of all these praises, if you are going to pick and choose one, okay, tell me one, why it is super duper great, and I must have it, is that, how with that wisdom we're able to understand that the two truths, could coexist. They do not invalidate one another. Okay? Or in other words, that the wisdom of perfection of wisdom helps us to understand that even though nothing exists truly and intrinsically in and of itself, but everything still exists and functionally they're able to function, perform their functions. So that is perhaps the greatest benefit of cultivating the wisdom, because as we talked about this a little earlier ago, that in our case, our assumption and belief is that things have to exist objectively from their own side intrinsically. Then everything seems possible, right? Cause and effect is possible, karmic action, the consequences are possible. But when someone says like nothing exists intrinsically, then we think that nothing should exist at all. So we have that issue, right? But with the wisdom of perfection of wisdom, we are able to understand that although nothing exists intrinsically, just the way we thought it should exist, but still things do exist, and cause and effect relationship is possible, and karmic actions and consequences are very feasible. Okay? So that kind of realization, understanding is the greatest benefit of cultivating such a wisdom.
What is it? Then don't you understand? Share Johnny, pull the champion mantra, share of the Phuntsok Gyeltsen, they should do you fusion. Sumi showed the shower Tamji the Yondin, so him a Tamji, Tinda Gyeltsen, Jung, that direction of Hersa. Tanda don't do Rodina, Yonde Tamji Shera Shumaris. Or till Polish have a man, you share up till in Phuntsok Ganga, because Saturday to the Taj Judgment. The heat doses that Sanji on the end of the Minji said, Kanji, Sami get the engagement in the Sanji Ganjukuzu Yonde Ganga and share of Shumaris. Hiratoshi. Tamji the Yonde so him or the Tamji, Tinda Shera Gula, Danging Jung, Stita Tisha. That in Jigit and the Judit Jordan, Zula Medicine Yova tongue. 요소 기지 로다 ngala so 남구 체기 체벌 타데 당 남자 남아 나도 남자 고다 당 제데메 페베 남바 테다티 예시 투진 남바 돈셰바 테다타지 셰르 틀리 숑스 다 너네 간지 지된다 지된데 무슨 소보 강가되니 셰르 틀리 용거르세 디인사라와
So Geshe's explanation pertains to the citations from the Compendium of the Perfections on page 216. And as Geshe explained, that in many ways wisdom is the source of all our great realizations and qualities. And when we think in terms of Buddha's enlightened qualities, we can talk about the 10 exclusive powers of an enlightened being, or the 4 fearlessnesses of the Buddhas, or any other great qualities that an enlightened being has. All of those things are due to the wisdom. So wisdom is the source of such qualities and realizations. And in brief, whatever what we call mundane qualities and the super-mundane qualities, all of those are the result or the outcomes of wisdom.
This is Shera maybe Nimi last that even that because you might be using those. Taking a share of Ganga that didn't my share of men and John Carry, the John the Higgins. That tea put a tag. The Yondini and the Dorne and that share of the Kegua never use on that you go out to do or what is it?
So Geshe said, maybe it seems like for the last couple of weeks you have, or maybe a week at least, you've been dealing with the benefits of the perfection of wisdom, why it is so beneficial and we must cultivate it. So now the next one is, if you don't have it, then what's the problem? The faults of not having that wisdom. So to speak, the other side of the same coin. We have to look at it. What did I write here? Even I forgot. No, okay.
No, the Carresana, Dangotan Carsa, Dombalaya sort of the Onhios or the Chipamara, or 6 some of the Ansu Shevashe. In the year you get on the Rwa. So this is the Diego report and never say the Rwa. So the Chevashin, she young, even year young, make it the musician are meant to time, but some other to Yamonti Shomarwa. Then the Dombatov said, the Genas of the also said that. You know, Hagawa, Dipato, that conversion so Chaka. This was the Dijaga got any figure on the tongue years. Any kind of Ganga jumps in the Tomara, the Koji got the penny dorni. That quality and then there was the one is and the Yaku would meta some energy. What did that Muslim body that's some of the Yaboris?
Okay, so what did I write here? Now I figured out what did I write here. So we have talked a lot about the benefits of perfection of wisdom and what are the faults if you don't have that wisdom. So if we look at it from the 2 angles, what are the benefits and what are the limitations or lacking if you don't have it? It's just like doing the cost-benefit analysis here, right? Then we can say, okay, which side should I choose? Yeah, we have to be honest. We can't cultivate everything, but at least we know which side and the direction I should take and do my best to have at least some benefit here. That's better than nothing, right? So that's why we have to do that kind of cost-benefit analysis here. And what Geshe is emphasizing here in his teaching is that the things we have talked about this is something that we can all investigate, right, and examine and find out, right? We don't have to take it based upon some kind of belief system of some kind of imagined visualization thing. Like in the case of empowerment, right, we receive the blessings. Well, we just think we receive blessings. We really don't know who are the ones who received it, who has not received it. We really don't know. There's nothing to verify it, isn't it? Okay. Well, you should visualize that you have taken all the bodhisattva vows and the commitments. Well, Maybe you received it, maybe you didn't receive it. We don't know. How do we do that? But the things here we talk about, the benefits of having the wisdom and the demerits of not having the wisdom, is something we ourselves can use our intelligence and investigate and figure it out, and then see, is it making sense or not? Of course, I have to be honest. I can't do everything that's said in the Dharma. It takes time. It's a process I have to go through. But at least now I know which direction I should move and what efforts I should make, at least to be able to have some benefits, right? So that's very important. Okay.
Well, that door the share of the young big so big young girl the loving him by Sungyo Shevani, and if you Sanjay Gusum Toya the party Ganga de any share of Tulden Jugua. What is the Injing Minjik? Chedrata Shemuzia, the court. Big Karsa, any Jul Kajiso, Sheriff City, Tandatina, the Sheriff Mongoyer, that's who do the Dijiminga said, they don't you do a sheriff. She the Sheriff said, and the Sheriff Gangal, Longer Shingi Gangal, Sheriff Sigara. She the thing on Yamsland, Doya, Navia Gundel Page Mongoyorella, any church did not like Page, on the church, you didn't go, the Sheriff and the church, you didn't go, or this or that. Or to get the Dakaje Payutos of the Indian Dasha Marva, or the Daka Payuma law, and get it in the only raid of Marine London, the Ganga Reja San, the contains the Tesosagaji Midua. Or Cheta, this is the tea in Karsa, similar picking never Shegu or this.
So when we talk about the benefits of the wisdom, in some sense, we're talking about the benefits of wisdom in general, because wisdom can be of different kinds and different types, Of course, when we talk about, realizing how nothing exists truly or intrinsically, yet everything is feasible and workable and functional, well, that kind of wisdom is a very particular kind of wisdom. That's what we call the wisdom realizing emptiness. But that's not only the wisdom, because there's all kinds of wisdom. And as we can see that whether we deal with the mundane affairs of things or super mundane, wisdom is really important, right? For us to be able to know what's right, what's wrong, what we should do, what we should not do, yeah? And wisdom helps us to know about what's right or wrong. It helps us to prevent doing the wrong thing. It helps us to cultivate the right qualities, do the right thing, advance and protect the right thing, So wisdom is very beneficial in many of those ways. So in general, when we talk about the wisdom, it pertains from practice point of view, what should we cultivate and adopt? Lang. What should we not do and abandon, right? Langtor. So that's the kind of wisdom we are dealing with. And as Geshe once again emphasized, that things we have talked about here, the benefits of the wisdom, is something that we must all really consider seriously, contemplate it, and make sure that it is something we can investigate on our own, right? Don't consider it like a laundry list here, like these are the 10 benefits of the, well, he didn't say that, right? These are the 10 benefits you get on your checklist. No, it's not a checklist, it's not a laundry list, It's something we must, look at very seriously and investigate, and something we can understand on our own. You don't have to take it based upon a faith or some kind of visualization or imagined faith, like, okay, I think it's really beneficial. No, just investigate it, examine it,
Oh, that Pajin Senate, that Jimani, and the Sheraba to go there, because Jibu Chindri should say in a Yams language, that one of them told the Yana or the Yam language in the show or that one of them told the Yang that she need a lot of Mugoshe, but that did some Yams Lena and do or that Tarba that Tabi Tongina, she need a lot of Mato Toya Marwa. That did a Kanji Shungun changes to Ganga, 2 months Ganga Kongish did or that.
So the 6 perfections, which are usually called perfections, from generosity to the wisdom, these in many ways are practices that are relevant to practitioners on different levels, right? Those maybe who are seeking just a good rebirth, so to speak, right? Fortunate. They really need to abide by ethics. They need to practice generosity, right? It's something. What they really don't need, if that's all they want, is they don't need to cultivate calm abiding and special insight. They don't need that. Because just to be able to have a good rebirth, you don't need those things. But those who are seeking nirvana or liberation from samsara, they definitely need to cultivate calm abiding and special insight, right, in union, integrated. And then those who want to attain Buddhahood, right, you really need to practice the 6 perfections with great compassion and bodhicitta. So the things we talk about are relevant to practitioners on different levels. So we will stop there today, and we welcome your questions and thoughts. Yeah, please.
Hi, thank you. So I wonder if there is a way for us to, I don't know, maybe know when we are applying wisdom correctly, because maybe sometimes we think we are doing something with wisdom, but maybe it's not 100%, or we don't know. So I wonder if there is a way for us to know.
Sure,
please.
thank you. Kurang kandi shwede dirisha ta tering gengi jigden da debigi niji da hakwaya da karine piga takda chela da shirab kechim rosung borwage. Sita kurang kandi shwede dirisha ta zam tabla nganzo soso jing namjo ri pyejo chen derwage. Tin digyo samba ine ta namjo ko takda nganzo namjo chue de gner yungro wage. Jeza namjo pyejo che di shirab di ta takda digwaji im mayin girwage. 소소 간데서 하고 또 그래서 델리지 하고 당도 쉬어서 남자 제베디 최매지
다 고유를 저기 차차가 좀 어디지 피지리 해다 고문이 해야되다 이놈들 남서 뜻이신 남서 시토야 쳐고로 비고 사무실라도 고비야 요마라.
In one sense, Geshe said, at all levels, I mean, a lot of the things where we all have this sense of what is right, what is wrong, that kind of intelligence or wisdom, whatever we will call it, is more sort of sense of like common sense kind of intelligence, isn't it? And we kind of know it, what is not. It really doesn't require that much of a thinking in some sense.
Ropen de de marata fena karsa da bige kar de manju sia to in chue shi en tarba to re sia ji ge ja jo
No.
다 언제 능외선에 아니 심지 처와서 되는 맛이 사죠로. 어디래시게 소사다는 아는 거네 가리는 처와지 말이죠. 당근에 가르된 바 인사래서는 피질랑상식이라.
So there are, I think, things, for example, where maybe we can figure out, with our own sort of a common sense, I call it, he didn't say it, intelligence or wisdom. Is in the case of in Buddhism, some of the principles we learn about is that violence is harmful, right? We should not be violent or hurt anybody else, and that's a good thing. So I mean, we as a sensible person, we understand, right, why it is good, why violence is bad in some sense, or that if we are seeking freedom from samsara, called liberation and nirvana, then we must follow the spiritual path, right? Without following, the dharma or the spirituality, we will not be able to get there. So again, we will have a sense of that. Okay, if I take any other path, I'm never going to reach there. 지단에다 그냥 아주 하고 거기 시럽지어로 와이나 다 잠잠리에 그런 디sam을 믿으면 선바 치바데 장마저 리그메 동안 내당 카세 나리아 소소 남주의 배제지는 다 니체는 야고 레 삼대이네 소소 남주의 노르도 되는 거로 와게 다 노부터 간다 하고 있어서 다 남주 양다 봤어.
네. 제대 노라 용거래다. 노라 용거래 대대신나 다 뒤에서 제주시네. 지다 대서도 와. 남자지리에서 처음 마셨을 건데 다 남배배전에 이어가죠. 네. 지리나 알레 감정 애는 비게 제바시 하고는 야고를 하모나 대두샤는 비게 타마제샤니 대주 셴바시야요 봐. 어디 돌리시쇼로 와. 제 영한도 도바사제 강가데 비게 가르사 간들라서 때에 치고 말이지나 비게 다 게디랑버셔야 돼 페이지를 망하셔야 돼 가서 하고 왔다. 노스비게 하고 그러면 선들는 소설도 봐시는데 그게 능어용도 아니고 맨날 봐서 능어용으로 와. 뒤에 나 이제 처와시는 가래 이제 참보시는 말이니까 소설 여보시는 가게도 와. 찍어지기로 와. 뒤에 시리즈 비 랑도 망고지 소설 그 페이지 무슨 무슨 소리 샤줘로 와. 어디래?
I was just trying in my way to how to clarify maybe what your question is about, because we could be in a situation where we think we use our intelligence best, but still we got it wrong, right? So our intelligence could be distorted. How could we know something? And maybe that's what you meant, maybe you didn't mean. So anyway, I pushed it that way. And Geshe said, yeah, there are situations we will make mistakes despite our intelligent thinking, but we do learn from our mistakes, lessons. But some of the things we could practice is in any kind of situation, we should not rush to make judgment and make decision. Take time to think. Think through as best as we can. Maybe get a second opinion, third opinion. I don't know, right? But don't decide it too fast and too quickly. So that could help us, applying the wisdom. And in many ways, when we think in terms of our practice, we call abandonment and cultivation, what we should cultivate, adopt, what we should get rid of, don't do. Geshe feels that if we check with our own personal experiences, that could inform us, Say, when others are nice to us, do we like it or we don't like it, If we like others' kindness, then probably others would also appreciate our kindness as well, And if somebody hurt us, is that something we enjoy or we consider is really negative and bad? Well, we think I don't want anybody to hurt me because that's not right. Then we learn that we should not hurt anybody else because I don't think anybody is going to enjoy being hurt, So in many ways, based upon our own life experiences, what we want, what we don't want, others have similar wishes, And so that way we will be able to apply ourselves into the practice of abandonment and cultivation.
그래서 선지기 가르다 송야들 담에서 해보지 송여와 제가 자기를 해보 송여도 그 가도 펜도 오샤네 뒤송도 근데 픽싱은 담에서 망벌래 여 망벌려 온 거에서 어디에 강가래 네 비게 제주를 비시나 그 고바도 디카도 송가 고바 주데다 강가 시에서는 인 선지기 제가 탈 해봐 선지 연대시 뭐버디 이바지 도그러와 근데 주로 가게 들어야 말에 네 인스티면 딜 제가 지금 말했어. 내가 그렇게 하는 걸 사실 준다. 배드 무슨 더 써서 말해. 사실 제가 시비가 강가 나서 송유하다. 근데 차샤고 말이죠. 세메 점으로 제가 세메 점은 차셔. 되면 차셔 말이 송유라.
What Buddha has said, as we have talked about today, is that Buddha taught many things. And many things at the surface level or the face value look very contradictory and inconsistent. But if we take the time to think through everything, and we may be able to figure out what was Buddha's intention behind saying whatever he said, under what circumstances, to whom he said, right? So we will be able to figure it out. By the way, Shakyamuni Buddha was a very unique teacher in that he said, I taught many things, and you have every right to investigate my teachings. He did not put any risk. He said, what? Well, at that boundary, don't go beyond that, because I'm a Buddha, and just, believe me, that's what I said. He did not say that. Maybe in some faith, they must at a certain point, we say, you can't go beyond that, because that ends at the end of the line, right? But Buddha said, investigate my teaching. If you find that what I said is authentic and valid by your investigation, then accept it. Otherwise, don't follow me blindly, So he gave us every freedom and right to investigate his teaching. So therefore, we should, we should do that,
다 저도 지기는 저도 다 좋았던 게 지라면서 그래서 가서 제를 뭐지 때마다 약보에서 유대 직 되시고다 제를 뭐지 카도 그래 강사과 표현하시 편도 가서 어디 남아 돕된 거요 그랬어 다 남아 가지게 애니 그 남아 거는 사부시는 된 거 그랬어 다 남아 거는 사부에도 그 강가 남아 사부도 잡이네 편도야 말하자 어디 가지 제를 뭐지 치즈 직 되셔서 봐 어디서 보다 저도 다 강사 누이도 말은지 남아 사부이나 따뜻이 시다다가 로인자 편도야 뭐다 거나 카도 자 니들 노르사 배우지 카드 가래는 팽거도 카드도 송이잖아 인들 중요하지요 말로 어때리
Geshe says, yeah, he's kind of detouring a little bit here because, but he thought maybe this could be something you might find beneficial. Now, oftentimes when we think about Lama Tsongkhapa's, teachings, he has many great qualities. One of which is, his teaching when he taught, he taught what is relevant, right, to those who are attending his teaching. Lama Tsongkhapa never sold his teaching like, but this is the profound teaching, just accept it. I'm telling you, it's profound. Maybe some lamas, they, stress too much the importance of the profound teaching. This is profound teaching, therefore you accept it. But Lama Tsongkhapa says, no. See whether it's beneficial to you, relevant to you. That's why I'm trying to communicate to you. If you see it beneficial, use it. If not, let it be. And also, as many of you know, that Buddha taught many things. He didn't teach the same thing to the same people, to all people. Why? Because there's such thing is receptivity, isn't it? Mental dispositions are different, abilities are different, receptivity are different, right? Are you the suitable vessel to receive this kind of a discourse or not? If you are, it is. If you're not, he wouldn't say that. So therefore, that's important to be taken into account as we try to understand the Buddha's teaching holistically. Why he said many things to many people and different people.
Tita Pento Mar, Carsa, Zorgen, the Chargent, the Shen, the no, the Rungo, the Marunza, and quite Sabo in the Carifeva, because thinking Zanunji with Jusiajo Mare. She's a defendo.
So whether we are suitable, receptive of certain discourse teaching or not, and our ability, all of those things are very important factor to be considered, right? And otherwise, if we just have the habit of jumping, for any kind of teaching which are built as very profound, the most important one, the innermost of this, the innermost of that, but it's not going to serve purpose, right? The example Geshe gives is like, like there's a lot of people, who just will go to the teaching because it is called Gyeltsen, the great completion teaching. It's called, Chakchen, the great Mahamudra, right? This is the most profound of the teachings of the Buddhism. Okay, therefore I should go there, It looks like it's for me. Well, when we are not qualified for that teaching, doesn't matter however profound or the most profound, the innermost profound of the teaching, it is not going to make any difference, Only when we are the right kind of a person and ready for that teaching, then it is helpful, right? Isn't it? Otherwise, just doing this hop stick jump for the high-level teaching is just going to be exercise. It's not going to be much of a benefit to us, personally. I think you got enough of today, huh? Oh, yes, Latmir, yeah. No, go ahead.
This is based on actually your question and also Geshe's comment, but it seems to me that I may be mistaken.
Right.
There's a difference in the way we think of wisdom. Let's say in the West, if I understand correctly, here there is a tendency to distinguish between wisdom and intelligence and knowledge.
Okay.
But there is no such distinction in Buddhism. It seems to me it's all the same: wisdom and knowledge and intelligence. It's not a mysterious thing in Buddhism.
Right. Sure.
We may be.
Yeah.
That's why we doubt. Do we have it or do we not?
Okay, sure. Okay,
because
that's a great question.
I don't know if I.
Alors, Quran kan dishe de dirisiga. Tanganzo tanda pepe ki ta nangzo sig de sherab se jorwa ke. Sherab se de ke kodun di ta Quran zo chije ki ke na la ta sherab da ane karsa orang zo ina lori nobo da mu se jorwa ke. Dige sig de takda konzo yawa mu chigo jorwa ke. Sherab se namju konzo ki kaso tes ji kokyu ji 통구에 jorwa ke. Ta chitan ki nganzo mi namjo se de kol mili jorwa ke. 제제 다 단다 네 시에게 셰랍세디 로바게 야고 찍저 로바게 셰랍세네 남주에 로바 지당 남주 리날 취되게 로바 아니 안디 멤버 야베 똑똑토베 셰랍디나 취되게 니네 인사로 와서 제가 먼저 취재가 암전나 고인도 강을 야고 셰랍 고든 카가 로바게 어디 제제 어디 테스트 디응고서래 사디네 이바이나사 니 셰랍디나를 야베나 남주 수고 로바게 미디고 상보를 세죠 로바 니 수고 남주 수고 로바게 되잖아
다 피지컬은 캡샤스 남주사지 야샤면로 봐. 남주사한테 같이 가서 콜리아 디레지 내가 그래 네가 해야 투용기 로직 쓰기라. 그래봐.
제 괜찮은 셰럽 남주 날 파츠.
셰럽 남주 해다 남주 가서 피지 배제는데 남주의 시라니 비지괴지고 소리 해요. 대신에 다 깝깝한 고동지 담으로 가야 돼요.
나로 다인데 당한 주 셰럽 되나라 남주 그 고아다 리번 로버 셰럽 강가 고도 거로
어디가 가고.
Yeah, I was just trying to double check, whether the Tibetan word shera, which we translate wisdom, whether it includes, right, intelligence, the usual, like the sharp faculty kind of thing, everything, right? He said, yeah, we use as a comprehensive term, as you said, but in the Western context, right, wisdom is probably reserved for some specific, right, meaning rather than the usual intelligence and other things, yeah.
And what is the general definition of wisdom? That applies to all the different types of wisdom that were mentioned here.
That's again done the sherab ko den chijing ji shab na rawage sherab chira ma imbe che chijing sherab ki ko che shan khande jal ko ko sa da chingi shab na
sherab da jidan this da pige zure da yang ta ba da yang to ma yin ba kan ji de cheban je thong ki lo ji da sherab so da chap sha de jin ma de
yang ta ba da yang
yang da ko ngu ni zu ko ra ta da je tong de ro ting ta da ai ma yin tin pige she to ai lo jo ma de ti kya ko da
I think in a general sense, I'll use both Tibetan term and the English so that if I make a mistake or something didn't translate precisely, it is that kind of the faculty that we have that helps us to discern what is yang Dagba can be called truth or the reality, and yang Dagba mind which is not the reality, truth. Right? Something that helps us to be able to discern between yang Dagba, what is the truth or the reality, or the fact for that matter, and what it's not. Right? That's the definition. Yeah.
So it's a type of a discernment or discrimination,
right.
the ability to discriminate between things.
This is again the Puri Chebs there. The working on the Namju Simjuna the Archie Puri Chebs working. Or this the code war working.
Puri said the ticket Mari. Puri said the coaching Rea Marissa, the Geshe, the Puri said the Yamara, call Tawara, call that Jemera said, the Geshe.
No,
the court and the share of the taxi the Omar, called Tavares and Tawai. Taval Koron Rotanjo, but the Gize when he has no got up his share of
Geshe, maybe there may be a slight distinction between discrimination and the wisdom as we define. The discrimination, in some sense, it has a sense of Dushem recognition. Let's say, well, he's a monk, I'm not a monk, right? That's just a discrimination. But the wisdom that we're talking about, it's like you need more reason. Why is he monk and I'm not a monk, right? What does monkness mean, right? Now I make a new word, right? What does it mean to be a monk or the monkness, Then you say, okay, that's why he's a monk, I'm not a monk. That's the wisdom part, right? Monkishness, yes. Any other thoughts? Yeah. Behind you.
So Geshe was talking about kind of the difference between Theravada and Mahayana teachings as well. And that just made me wonder, and I may be mistaken, but it seems to me that the birth stories of the Buddha, rebirth, are part of the Jataka tales. And the Jataka tales are definitely part of the Pali Canon, I think, which would mean that Hinayana Theravada monks have been exposed also to these stories about Buddha in previous lifetimes.
Yes.
All along, thousands of years they've been learning this, and doesn't that include the Buddha being called a bodhisattva and doing these activities, including maybe the story of the captain killing.
Sure.
So even Theravada must have been exposed to these teachings all along. So I'm just wondering, how have they kind of reconciled this understanding of the Buddha's progression, and yet they continue been practicing all along this arhat ideal and individual liberation?
Sure, thank you. Kona kandi shwede dire gen. Tatanda de kasatagi ken dis sumbarwa da sanje gi sunglia do shob tewe na nanger wiswa gen. Do da nga da an tekwa shujun sumbarwa. Tatagi tekwa shujun shute tekwa kaza tengmen da tejeng di sumbarwa gen. Jene pena 제 테멜 야 나와면 버디 청주성 발 나와 이렇게 대변 인지적인 중무성 발와게 제대 고라 상발이야 답변나 택면 속이 나리야 단다 디어와게 저 계랍이 와게 상제게 계랍 총랍 자다가 말아요 와게 총랍
상제 택면 세나
콘제디 켈링을 랭 말사다 총랍 상제 겨방에마 청주성 발게
계랍 켈링 거지
라로와 그래서 콘 kelling 거 와서게 link yuebe ina tanda sanje ki bana debe nyingji jeng chum de konse kita amjo go yure konse probage ke link yure soba ke link yuebe ondo tana soba sanje chum den de ku jeng yamal ya da ban debe nyingji jeng misse ba ji yor ba ge ina koran sa nyamlen chide kan la ro ge ta yan di langa khagas ro de ro ge chemo jo sa da di khande se koran di ki paru ge gyalta ro de se tu go re sa
ale tede chongyo mare 다다 택바 첨부 계랭에 말마다 인도 되니 되게 정주습에 택바 계랭 거로 어디 개발은 도 들어가는 샤도 거로 인도도 장말 도아디 인도 다다 인도 되니 시야도 지금 도아디 단 도로 와 다다 제랍도 인도 되니 쭉 말이가서 정수미 택바도 투모로 어디 가서 개발 참여 소사 되어 간거 정주습 뭐 샤고로 와 어때 그것도 계획 연쇼래
그래서 디케 알면 난게 되간데 세고래
사 제 좋으면 그래서 정주심부터 정주심도야다 뒤에샤네 에니피게 그 자와디 그 무수야디 그 다 미게 사회 소리나 아이 정주심 뒤 투기 인디 그 레가도 리부디 그 개와 요토고로
니 콘저 킬링
정주심 뒤
마디 콘저 단데 택맹이 콘저
그것도 계획 쇼지
알아노
니도 딱 먼저 잡아 다다 니도 써야지 정주심 계획 할 말와 잡아게 지상 시다로 와 어디리
알아론소 알아 전주 셈바게 전주 셈기 kengi dinde chebde konso kelen to go wage ene koranzo chemebdi
어디 쇼어 답변은 디쇼어 노아랑 루시나 잡아이네 비 소저 답변 메시아한테 드레이나 인식 미지 넘바 표현 뭐 세쇼도 현동 인선 랍쇼어 말해
나래론소
자 계지 조주도 노아 세대 계지 계지 문이 정시 셈바인 잡아인 인디에 도다시 법은 메시아한테 다 미동주한테 이네 그거처럼 기부지였나 에 잡아신님 된다 시조 말했어 넘바 표
Yeah, Geshe feels that in the Theravada, of course, one of the major controversies among Buddhism is they may not accept Mahayana as a vehicle, right? But they do accept Bodhisattvas, and as you said, they will accept, Bodhisattvas, for example, out of their bodhicitta mind, right? They're allowed to, perform those negative actions that they're not allowed to, So they accept that, notion in that. But for them, as they follow their tradition strictly, they realize that what Buddha has taught for them is that they cannot do exactly like Bodhisattvas do. Like in the example Geshe has given is in the case of a Theravadan monk, let's say. Even if you have the strong wish or the desire to benefit others, you see some benefit, right? Let's say, I don't know, participating in the war or something. So you have to give back your vow, monk vows, and then it's okay. You cannot, stay as a monk and, have a sexual intimacy or participate in a war or a fight. That's not allowed. So that's why for them, you have to give back the vows, and then it's, it's a different matter. But for the Bodhisattvas, you don't have to have that, Yeah. So they accept that notion, difference, So the monastic traditions is, really very much, it belongs to more of a Theravadan tradition, right? All the monks' vows and rules and regulation. There's no such thing as a Bodhisattva monk vows. It belongs to that category. Any you have a question? No. Anybody else? You have a question? No. Okay. If not, we will stop there for today, and they shall choose again. Anybody have? If you all have a question, it's okay. No. Kange lo de dimye de yinda namda rabsa ben chenye de wa le wan ze kanda sebe zra mare mendon dong e gize rozo la buje da ze yela ro yang de ro da je ro nye mo nye lo de ye cha ro zhen ze
Maria se dunga nyoga chenye jaja rajana dene daja saja tasa yende lunzo jese tuwe go chura dalu me se jambe yang la di je dalu temo memba rasene kada tenje sholo toba lo de bobe nawa Bega de Gesang Pome Chido Memba Tenpa Zinla Wando Jisho Be Changyin Shogun Chala Sowa.
Please start the English Manjushri.
Kính lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, bậc đại trí ngài đều phục hai chướng ngại, tự nhật quan lan tỏa khắp mười phương, bậc thực chứng chân nghĩa màu rốt ráo, từ tim ngài bát nhã kinh thủ hộ nhiệm màu, cõi luân hồi chúng sanh thọ nghiệp báo, bị ngăn che bởi phiền não vô minh, sở hữu 60 pháp âm thù thắng, cùng đại bi ngài hóa độ chúng sanh, tựa từ mẫu chăm lo cho quý tử. Tiếng rồng vang ngài thức tỉnh hữu tình, thoát khỏi vòng luân hồi nghiệp báu, gồm trí tuệ ngài chặt đứt vô minh, tận diệt muôn vàn khổ đau cùng ách nạn. Trường tử Như Lai tối thắng toàn giác, ngài an trụ nơi thập địa pháp vân, báu thân ngài trang nghiêm thanh tịnh, 112 tướng hảo Như Lai, tê đầu đảnh lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, cúi xin ngài tận diệt ám chướng vô minh. Con khẩn cầu dưới gót sen bậc đại trí, bàn pháp lực diệt phiền não vô minh, được trí sáng con thâm nhập nghĩa màu, pháp vi diệu cùng muôn vàn luận giải. Như diệu hương ngọt ngào từ sen trắng, đảng xanh nơi trí thù thắng đại dương, hàng thiện căn như ong mật thọ nương, hồng danh ngài khắp mười phương quảng bá, đấng thiện xảo uy dũng bảo tồn pháp bảo vô giá. Nam mô Lốp Giang Tenzin Quang Đắc, xin cung kính trì niệm.
chang ju sen jo ren bo che ma je ba nan je jo ji ke wa nyam ba me ba ya gong ne gong du pe wa zhong dong nie da wa ren bo che ma je ba nan je jo ke wa nyam ba me ba ya gong ne wai zhong sa xin bei jian zhu xin me do zhang ri ra ling jie nin de jian ba de sang jie xin do mi de yu wa lu gun nan da xin la xue bai zhong kang ri ra wei guo wei xin gang de pen dang de wa ma lun zhong 今日在我定心叫做也，小别谁的吧？天主节一当古如热那满的老高内呀。